or if they could do it by stealth, if they could do it by deception, if they could do it by step-by-step ways to impose Islamic law, the way these things are going on in the West, while Islamic scholars like these two gentlemen with us tonight issue a lot of deceptions and diversions and finger-pointing about Christianity and so on, so as to confuse and befuddle people and take their attention away from how Islamic law is advancing in the West, then that would be just fine and just as good as a terrorist bombing, which does the job in another way. But the objective is the same, and that is, as Dr. Pipes was explaining, to put Muslims in a superior position in society, non-Muslims in a subservient position in society, along with women. These things are part and parcel of the mainstream teachings of Islam, always have been. And these gentlemen, you notice, they don't deny it, they just divert. They just start changing the subject and talking about something else. And so this is part of the program that I would expect they themselves also are trying to impose. But even if they aren't, they are directing their venom against us as per their ad hominem attacks earlier. And I note the apology and thank you for it. But nonetheless, the strategy in a larger sense, not just from these gentlemen, but from many other Islamic spokesmen, is to demonize the people who are non-Muslims, who are calling attention to these aspects of Islam, to these teachings of Islam, and to try to fabricate the idea that it is we who are making these things up and propagating these things, and to ignore entirely the Muslims who are teaching these things in Islamic communities and stirring up Muslims worldwide to wage war in various ways against unbelievers, which is manifestly what is happening.
Robert, do you have a verse that can justify Islam calling for the subjugation of non-Muslims?
Certainly. The most notorious one is chapter 9, verse 29. Surah At-Tawbah, chapter 9 of the Quran, which in verse 29 says that Muslims should wage war against those who do not believe in Allah and His Messenger and do not forbid what He has forbidden, even if they are of the people of the book, which is primarily Jews and Christians, until they pay the jizya, the tax, with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. And that last clause about submitting and feeling themselves subdued became the cornerstone in Islamic law throughout history of an elaborate superstructure of laws that mandated that non-Muslims would indeed feel themselves subdued and be subjugated in Islamic societies, denied basic rights. These things, unfortunately, are still part of Islamic law. They can't really be changed easily. You know, I certainly would hope that there could arise new interpretations that would be generally accepted, come to be widely accepted in the Islamic world. But right now they run up against the hard facts of what is actually in the Quran and the way these things have always been interpreted. Surah At-Tawbah, the Surah of Repentance, the 9th chapter of the Quran, is generally considered to take precedence, considered by Islamic scholars, that is, mainstream Islamic scholars, to take precedence over other parts of the Quran that are generally more peaceful and teach something more akin to tolerance. And as long as that remains a mainstream view among Islamic scholars, then Muslims are going in the sense of out of a sense of piety, out of a sense of a religious responsibility, going to work to try to subjugate non-Muslims under the rule of Islamic law. And all we have to do is open our eyes and see that happening worldwide. That's not happening because of me. That's not happening because of Dr. Pipes. That's happening because of what the Quran teaches.
Okay, let's take our first call, and then we'll bring it back to Imam. Mustafa, quick announcement before we take our first call. Next week, Jihad Exposed, our topic will be, is Al-Qaeda justified in Islam? Our 4 guests next week who will join us, if you remember, Omar Bakri Muhammad, as well as Anjum Chowdhury, Waleed Shubat, and Kamal Salim. So stay tuned for that. Right now, let's take our first call this evening. You're live on Jihad Exposed. Who do we have on air with us?
Hello, Summer. This is Peter calling from Germany.
Welcome, Peter. Thank you for calling.
You're welcome. It's a very interesting show. I would like to make a couple of comments, if I may.
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, beginning, the 2 Muslim gentlemen mentioned what happened by Christians, what Christians done in Bosnia, for example. But they forgot to mention that Christians also helped the Muslims there and to end this bloodshed. This is the first question, the first comment I wanted to make. And the other thing is, have you ever recognized that whatever Christian nations did in the past, there was a confession We're still waiting for the confession of Turkey for the Armenian genocide. There's no confession from the Muslim side whatsoever. And that's why people start waking up and not believing that Islam is peace and Islam is moderate. If there's no confession about it, there will be no peace. I'm calling from Germany. We have a confession what happened 65 years ago to the Jewish people. Well, guess what? We have peace with them now. Germany is prosperous. You know, that's what I wanted to say just that, and maybe the gentleman can elaborate on that. Yes. And I wanted to thank you. I thank also ABN, Robert Spencer, and Mr. Pipes for their hard work, and you are not alone. We are behind you.
Thank you so much for calling, Peter from Germany. Let's turn it over to Dr. Pipes, who could probably elaborate a little on that for you.
So I defer.
Dr. Pipes, are you with us?
I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I was saying he wasn't asking the questions of me.
Oh, yeah.
He was supporting me, so I defer.
Oh, okay. All right, very good. Well, why don't we do this? Take a quick break, and then we will come back and continue to take your calls. If you have friends who want to watch this show live but don't have the satellite, you can refer them to abnsat.com to watch the program live. We'll be right back.
ما الصيغة التي يجب أن تعلن على الأمة كصيغة علاقة مع أمريكا ومع الغرب بشكل عام؟
تفضل.
أن نصارحهم وأن نقول
نعم.
أنتم معتدون على أرض الإسلام، تحتلون أراضينا، تستغلون ثرواتنا، تذلون شعوبنا، وإذا لم تكفوا وتعودوا وتسلموا الحقوق لأهلها فليس لنا معكم إلا صيغة واحدة، هي صيغة الجهاد، وهو الآن فرض عين على الأمة.
نعم.
دعني من بن لادن وأمثاله والقاعدة، ليس هذا هو ما أقصده بالجهاد، إنما جهاد أمة
مش جهاد أفراد
يقودها علماؤها وتعبأ الأمة بأهداف الجهاد السليمة العالية، ثم تنتهي بنا إلى مواجهة.
Are you a Christian who loves watching ABN shows? Are you eager to make a video and post it online and see it reach millions of Middle Eastern people? Or are you a Muslim who wants an outlet to ask questions, make comments, or post video responses to Christian evangelists and apologists? Well, ABN Tube has it all. ABN Tube is an extended media outlet of ABN TV ministry. We've gotten an overwhelming response from viewers of ABN to launch a media outlet for people like you to upload your own video responses to some of the clips we have online, whether on abnsat.com or on our ABNsat YouTube account. Our goal is to bring to light any and all lies about false religion through media, to create an open dialogue about religion among people of different faith, and to gear them to the truth of Jesus Christ. Please visit our site at www.abntube.com. Thank you.
Jihad has come to America.
Constitutes the most devastating series of terrorist attacks in history.
The only deen Allah accepts is Al-Islam, and whoever seeks any other deen apart
fatwa from Islam will never be accepted.
And we stand together to win the war against terrorism.
But you too will make your destruction.
Welcome back to Jihad Exposed, live on ABN. Before we take our next call, I'd like to just ask Imam Mustafa a few questions here. We see Saudis spending, Imam Mustafa, almost $3 billion trying to export their radical version of Islam globally. If that's the case, that's a lot of money. If that's the case, why, I mean, you're saying that it has nothing to do with Islam. Where are they getting this ideology from? Why are they so intent on spreading such a radical ideology globally if it has nothing to do with the religion of Islam?
Well, the question itself is pregnant with a supposition that the Muslim charity to Muslim worlds out there is funding terrorism or radical whatever. That is not true. You do not know that. There's no objective evidence of that. Most importantly, the thing that kept repeating by Mr. Spencer and Mr. Pipes, different versions of Islam, radical Islam, moderate Islam, terrorist Islam, Islam with gravy or whatever, there's nothing that supports that. And when we brought examples of the behavior of the Prophet of Islam himself, Mr. Spencer said that, you know what, you're bringing me back to history. You want me to bring you examples of Prophet Muhammad that are yet to come, or tell you what the Prophet of Islam himself said about the topics that you're talking about? Again, Mr. Pipes misunderstood me. What I meant is that Mr. Pipes, being a PhD in history, when you make a claim such as that Islam is a supremacist religion or is an imperialistic religion, bring me a proof from the Quran or the correct hadith of the Prophet. For example, the verse that Mr. Spencer brought that he proves the subjugation of non-Muslims on Muslims' land. What it means is that people who evade paying taxes should be forced to pay taxes. And that is applicable to Muslims before it's applicable to non-Muslims. Abu Bakr fought the Muslims who refused to pay the poor right and the rich's money in what is known by Harb al-Ridda. So you don't tell me that a non-Muslim who's living in a Muslim state afforded the peace and security in a Muslim state and he should live tax-free, otherwise he's persecuted. And these are the quality of the examples that, and we heard it so many times from Mr. Spencer, oh, it's all over Sharia, it's all over Quran, it's all over Hadith. And as usual, I authored The Lies About Muhammad, 400 pages, and I answered the ideology of Mr. Spencer page by page and paragraph by paragraph, and it speaks for itself. I'll give you another example before I move
real quick, before you go on to the next example. Before you go on to the next example, let me just ask you a quick question on this example so we stay on topic. So you're saying basically under an Islamic state, nowhere in the Quran it states that a non-Muslim is subjugated to Islamic law, whether it be pay the jizya tax or convert to Islam or be killed. That's not listed in the Quran.
Muslims pay tax, non-Muslim pay tax. For example, the Muslim tax, the jizya tax, is 1 dinar per year, which is equivalent to $100 per year.
I'm asking you just a straightforward question. Basically, yes. if a non-Muslim, I'm not a Muslim, if the United States became an Islamic state, would I be subjugated to either become Muslim or pay the jizya tax or be killed?
Muslim, if you choose to be a Muslim, you pay the Muslim tax. If you are a non-Muslim, you pay the non-Muslim tax. And it's a fair tax, an example, $100 per year per person. The rabbi, the priest, the children, the women do not pay. Only they able to fight men.
What if I don't want to pay the tax or become a Muslim? What happens?
What if you want to pay tax in America, which is not a Muslim state now? What would they do to you?
Well, I wouldn't be killed. I don't think I'd be killed. Right?
Well, who said that you're going to be killed if
you
don't pay tax?
Right, well, that's just my question. I just wanted to ask the question because it's been said that the Quran does state that you have those three options as a non-Muslim in an Islamic state, which is what I wanted clarification on.
The verse is there. If you don't pay tax, you should be fought by the authorities, like the IRS fight people in this country if they evade or cheat on taxes, like any country in the world. It's not unique to the Muslims, and the Muslims themselves pay tax, and if they don't pay, they would be subject to the authorities for paying their taxes. On top of that, here's the subjugating aspect of also being a non-Muslim. You're exempt from military service. How bad is that? I bet Mr. Spencer would want every Christian to go there and be killed, him and his children, just not to be persecuted by Muslims for not being exempt from the military service. That's the kind of nonsense that we hear. So I ask of Mr. Spencer and I ask for Mr. Pipes, when you make these broad claims, that is in the Quran and the Hadith,